Hello there. If you've watched many of my videos, you know I kind of like to do things different and, oh, you want to see it? That's different. I have no problem with a rote, or let's say a standard opening that's the same in every video. A lot of the channels, whiskey and non-whiskey, that I'm subscribed to, they do that. It saves having to come up with something new all the time, and you can focus on the rest of it. But it's not my style. I have my notions, and sometimes they conflict. At least they appear that way. This is a whiskey review. Yes, I'm totally changing the subject, doing it abruptly. That's how I managed to get off of the dumbness. I don't think I'm subject to the Dunning-Kruger effect. I can recognize when I make gravel look smart. This is a bourbon review. Usually that's what I'm going to be reviewing. I might occasionally review rye, very occasionally Scottish or Irish or something. But I'm a bourbon guy. The channel is Whiskey for Beginners. I do not exclude other things, but because my budget, I have no advertisers. Nobody wants to sponsor me. I have 86 subscribers. Why are there no sponsors? I can't understand why. Feel like Hank Weldon. If you don't know who that is, go watch the Miami Vice episode, Out Where the Buses Don't Run. But I have a limited budget. What I buy is for me to drink, and as gravy, if you are willing to accept that I'm gravy, I do these videos. Tonight, I say tonight, you may be watching it at high noon, we have Devil's River, specifically Devil's River Bourbon Whiskey. I've said this before and I'm going to emphasize it again. Don't ever think that bourbon and whiskey are two different things. Bourbon, whiskey. Would you think that scotch and whiskey are two different things? Would you think that rye and whiskey are two different things? Of course you wouldn't. Why do you think that bourbon and whiskey are two different things? Come up with a good reason for that one. But I'm not here to jump down your throat. Please don't misunderstand me. It's just, one of my pet peeves is dumb usages in the English language. Not necessarily sloppy. You listen to me in this video and any other, you'll know what sloppy is like, but not dumb. I don't do dumb usages if I can help it. Anyway, this stuff. Devil's River Bourbon Whiskey. It's 90 proof. It is small batch Texas bourbon whiskey, but listen to this. Produced and bottled by Devil's River Distillery, San Antonio, Texas. Produced is not the same as distilled. If they themselves distilled it, then they could legally put on the label distilled and bottled by. But the law requires that you have to actually distill it yourself to say that. So where does the whiskey come from? I don't know. I didn't hunt a lot online, but I did hunt, couldn't find out. My guess is it's probably MGP, Midwest Grain Products, which has this massive, let me not be dumb. No dumb usages here. Massive has to do with mass, not volume. This much deuterium, not deuterium, neutronium, is more massive than a cubic mile of lead. Maybe I'm slightly off on my figures, but you take, let's do this. Here's a question that a guy I worked with could not get right, which tells you something about the state of education in this country. What's heavier, 100 pounds of rocks or 100 pounds of feathers? Both are equally massive because both have a mass of 100 pounds. But 100 pounds of rocks has a smaller volume than 100 pounds of feathers. So MGP is not necessarily a massive distillery. It's a big, a humongous distillery. They mostly do distilling for other people. And I suspect that's probably where this is from. There are other possibilities, but MGP, I believe, is the most likely. But we need to get on to the whiskey. I'm at 6 minutes and counting, and I haven't got to the whiskey yet. I've been a ranting and a raving, and I apologize for that. And because of how things work with my hands, I hold the bottle with two. If I held the glass, then that would help support the bottle. And this is about as heavy as a Frey Ranch bottle. And they have bottles you could brain somebody with. Now this is a Texas whiskey, but not. Because they didn't distill it in San Antonio, and I don't know of any Texas distilleries which are doing contract distilling or which have enough extra stocks that they can afford to sell them to others. It smells like bourbon, but it's not just bourbon. There's a sweetness there above and beyond what you would expect from bourbon. I'm not sure that's quite accurate. Above and beyond what you will normally get from a standard bourbon. Let me put it that way. It's almost a honey sweetness, maybe honeysuckle. It's not the same at all. It's a different sweetness, but it's making me think of the really definite sweetness in Devil's River agave bourbon, which I've had 2 glasses of, so the next glass I'll do a review of it. But I don't know when I'll record that. And once again, if you've seen my videos, you know I don't know when I'll upload either of these reviews I'm talking about. Honey, maybe honeysuckle. There's a fruitiness there. It makes me think of yellow fruit like mangoes or papayas or something along that line. Not pineapple, not banana, but kind of a yellow tropical fruit type of thing. There's just a little bit of a note that I have smelled somewhere before in my life. And I'm 66, so that's a lot of smell memory to try to go through. I can't remember where I've smelt it or what it was. I have a vague impression that it has to do with my mama's kitchen, but beyond that, I can't tell you anything. Maybe it's some... In fact, I'm going to say it's some kind of spice. I'm not a cook. Only thing I can cook from scratch and do it well, if at all, is fried potatoes. And by the time I realize that's what I want, I'm so hungry I don't have time to wait for the time it takes to do it right. it's not, I know what it is. That spicy fruitiness. It's kiwi. In addition to the other fruits I mentioned, I'm getting a kiwi note. I haven't had a kiwi in a while. I might want to mention that to my wife. She used to buy me kiwis fairly often, but I haven't had one recently. But there's that kind of tart, sweet, I think of hairy as an adjective. A kiwi's skin is kind of fuzzy. The inside isn't, but that's the impression that I'm getting. I don't believe I've ever had kiwi from a whiskey before. And I've been so focused on trying to figure that out, I haven't been looking at anything else. Cinnamon, definitely. Brown sugar, and those are standard bourbon notes. Why do I keep swirling it, by the way? It mixes the whiskey around, it aerates it, it helps the vapors come up, and it's the evaporation of the whiskey that carries the notes to my nose, or to your nose. And no, you don't have to do the things I'm doing. You don't have to review whiskey. You don't have to get any note I do. You don't have to get anything more than I like it. If that's all you get, that's fine. I don't get near as many as a lot of other people. Yeah, there's this greenness like kiwi. It's not an enormously complex nose, but it's a very, very pleasant one. And with each glass, this is my third from this bottle, this stuff has gotten better. It's opening up very well. Well, let me have a look at the mouthfeel. Boy, as soon as I swallowed, I got a hit of alcohol burn. Almost started to swirl my Coke. That's how much of a habit that is. But the mouthfeel is really nice for 90 proof. The minimum proof you can have in whiskey is 80. 90 is just 10 points above that. And 90 is what I prefer, 90 or better. But not all 90 proof whiskeys have the viscosity for a nice mouthfeel. Some are real watery even at 90, never mind what they'd be like at 80. I nose it again because taste and smell go together, so I'm liable to keep getting more as I do both. If anything, it's gotten a little more fruity, a little more fuzzy, if I can put it that way. Definitely, if it's gotten anything, it's gotten even more pleasant. That is not bad at all. I got definite sweetness, like holding a sugar cube in your mouth and letting it melt. There was honey in there, cinnamon and brown sugar in there, maybe a tad bit of vanilla in there. Again, not enormously complex, at least not on that first flavor sip, but pleasant. And this is a $36 bottle. I paid $35.90 for it at Kelly Liquors. And as you can see, the date has completely almost rubbed off. I have the date in my phone. I'm pointing at my phone. I'm recording with it, so I can't look it up and tell you It was sometime back in March, that's all I know for sure. I'm not sure, well, let me save that till the summary. And I may change my mind on what I was about to say anyway as I go along. Whew. Right there at the top of my throat, the alcohol just bam as soon as I swallowed. This is a nice sweet whiskey. If you like your whiskey sweet, this is a good one for you. It's got that sugar sweetness. It has the honey, the cinnamon, the brown sugar, standard bourbon notes. Again, it is not very complex, but it's very nice. Sometimes you don't need 95 discrete notes in each sip. Sometimes you don't need a whiskey that every time you sip it gives you 20 more notes. This is a really good sipping whiskey. Let me give you the finish before I contradict myself and give you the summary after all, before it's time. I give no summary before it's time. And those of you who are old enough will be able to figure out where that come from. The finish, as always, or almost always, is where I'm getting the least from this whiskey. I get the alcohol burn, and most of it vanished while I was just telling you that. There is right now a slight spiciness beginning right behind the tip of my tongue, and it was running back into my throat. It's slowly receding forward and fading out. I'm going to have to try another finish sip. Okay, the alcohol's there. Then there's a streak of honey and sugar sweetness going back. That fades right out. I have that line of spiciness that moves, or that fades forward. And I did get a definite hug right down to about here, and then it just cuts off. So the finish is not at all spectacular. Nothing about this whiskey, and now we're coming to the summary, nothing about it is spectacular, but it's very nice. I like the nose, I like the palate. The finish needs more complexity, it needs more length for things to develop and for me to enjoy the taste. But overall, this is a nice whiskey. I highly endorse it. I don't know if highly is necessarily a valid adjective. For $36, it might be a little more pricey than it ought to be, but this is what they call a craft distillery, and look down their noses at. Forgetting that Jack Daniel started with Jasper Newton Daniel, Nathan Uncle Nearest Green, and a pot still. That is how Jack Daniels, one of the major distillers of the earth, started as a craft distillery. I can't stand it when people, it's craft. You know, let's not be so snobbish. Is the whiskey good or is it not good? If it's good, who cares if it's craft? I don't care. All I care is, do I like the whiskey? I like the whiskey. But being a craft distillery, their costs per bottle are higher. Therefore, they have to charge more per bottle. The distributor might charge more because he's not sure he's going to sell it. The store, of course, then has to charge more than they would for, an equal quality bottle from a gigantic industrial distillery. So I don't know that the whiskey itself is worth $36, 30 maybe. I don't know about 36. But considering all the factors, I don't think it's a cheat at all. It's not a cheat. We come to the rating scale, and since I don't do a ton of reviews, I tend to show it just about every time. Can you see any clear, plain, legible handwriting? No? Then it must be mine. If all it took to be a doctor was bad handwriting, I would have been an MD from Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, USC, UNM, which is the University of Nothing Much here in Albuquerque. I'd have a degree from the Sorbonne, from Oxford, from Cambridge. I'd have all sorts of medical degrees if all it took to be a doctor was bad handwriting. A pharmacist might have trouble reading this, and I swear they must take classes in how to read doctors' handwriting. Although these days I grant prescriptions, they type them on the computer, they shoot them through cyberspace. Anyway, shall we get on with the rating? We shall. Very good. Okay. I know it's, and by the way, this rating scale has 1 at the bottom, 8 at the top. I know it's not bad. I know it's not I know it's not mediocre. I know it's not okay. But I also know it's not fine, which is number 6. It's not one of the first 4. It's not the 6th. So that makes it good. Number 5. On my scale, which is more than halfway up. Good. That's 3.125 stars, 62.5 out of 100, or 6.25 out of 10. And there are more expensive whiskeys from more recognized distilleries which aren't that good. This is not spectacular. It's not going to be the best whiskey you've ever put in your mouth, but this is good whiskey. And so what I am going to do now is I'm going to move that aside. I am going to take up my glass, and since this is a Texas whiskey, I'm going to invite you, if you're watching this with a glass in your hand, to hold it out. We'll clink glasses. Remember the Alamo.